Okay, today we're going to do a cornbread mix. Cornbread is a basic that everyone needs to know how to make. It's very simple, and we're coming up on Thanksgiving time, and everybody's going to need to make their dressing and stuffing. So this is Laura's gluten-free flour mix, and we're just going to use 1 cup of that, and we're going to add 1 cup of cornmeal. Now to that, and this is real simple, we're going to do all this in one bowl, but we're going to make 3 different items with this 1 bowl mix. So we're going to add 1/4 cup of oil. What type of oil you use is not really important as long as it's liquid at room temperature. If you want to use canola oil, if you want to use olive oil, whichever you want to use is fine. Then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Anytime you use a flour mix, you want to add probably just a little bit of salt, otherwise the flour has kind of a dead taste and the salt kind of picks it up and gives it a little life. And of course, since we're doing gluten-free, we're going to have to add a teaspoon of xanthan gum. You've got to have the xanthan gum in there because that's going to replace the gluten and help hold your finished product together so it doesn't crumble and fall apart. A good rule of thumb that I use is about 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum to 1 cup of flour. Now technically this is 2 cups of flour because we're doing 1 cup of the Laura's gluten-free flour and 1 cup of the cornmeal. But cornmeal actually has its own gluten, which kind of helps hold it together. So my 1 teaspoon for my gluten-free flour is sufficient, all I need. Now I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Now sometimes people are a little confused about whether or not they should use baking powder or baking soda. And the difference is going to be depending on some of the other ingredients that are in your product. Everybody remembers the science fair project with the volcano, and you put the baking powder and baking soda in there with the vinegar, and you got this great lava flow. That's because the baking soda reacts with the acid. So if you've got a product that's calling for baking soda, you probably are also calling for something like buttermilk or Dr. Pepper, those Dr. Pepper cakes, or lemon juice, something that's acidic that's going to react with that baking soda. Now here we're using baking powder. The difference being I'm not using any sort of acid, and baking powder comes with its own acid to give me that nice bubbly and so that my product has some texture to it. We're going to add 1 egg. Now remember, anytime we have a product that only calls for 1 egg, it's pretty easy to eliminate that egg. And if you look on my website, you'll be able to find a way to do the same recipe egg-free. Now we're going to have 1 cup of liquid, which is going to be, today I'm going to use soy milk. You can use regular milk in this. You can use rice milk, potato milk, almond milk. Now if you use almond milk, you're going to have a little bit of a sweetness to this. Also, you could use a vanilla-flavored soy milk, which is also going to give you another little sweetness. And then you would end up with what we call Yankee cornbread. Texas cornbread doesn't have sugar, but if you like sweet cornbread, you could add 2 to 4 tablespoons of sugar to this. But you know, the way I would do it is go ahead and mix it just the way I'm going to mix it. Then I'll make a couple of muffins the normal way. And then for Uncle Joe coming down from New York, we'll add a little bit of sugar for the other half of the recipe. So everybody's happy, everybody gets what they want. So now I promised that we were going to take this one mix and we're going to make a number of different recipes. So now that we've got the one thing all mixed up, here's what we can do with this. 1, we can put it into a regular 9x9 pan and make a big pan of cornbread that's going to be for the whole family. Now, in gluten-free baking, because it is a little more expensive than normal, usually you don't bake for the whole family. It's usually just for one person. So that's why I really like to have my recipes be multitasking and do different things, because you get tired of the same thing. Everyone wants a little bit of variety. So we're going to make cornbread muffins with this. But by the way, if you decide to make the whole large pan and maybe you've got half the pan left over after the meal, freeze it, save it. Now you've got your cornbread all ready to go for Thanksgiving when you're ready to do your stuffing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to get a little scoop, and we'll just put 1 scoop here, and we're going to fill up, about 2/3 of the pan for each one of the muffins. Okay, so we're going to fill it up about 2/3 of the way, and we're going to do just plain cornbread for the kiddos that don't like to have things too spicy for them. But now, earlier in the week, we had a little bit of chili, and there was just a little bit of chili left for about 1 recipe left over. So we're going to put it in one of these little tins, which are great. You can pick them up at almost any store. and usually you can catch them on sale. So we'll put the chili in there, and we'll put a little cornbread mix on top of that, and we'll be able to bake that up, and there's a nice lunch for the rest of the week. Then for the rest of our muffins, we had a little bit of corn left over. We don't waste anything. Gluten-free baking is too expensive to throw things down the drain. So we're going to add a little bit of corn, and this corn had a little bit of jalapenos, a little bit of pimento, bell peppers. What's great about this recipe is just make it your own. Add whatever you like. If you like it, that's good. Baking generally is a science, and you don't want to mess up the recipe too much, but adding a few little ingredients like the corn is not going to make a difference. Now, if we add too much, change the liquid too much, or change the flour mixture too much, now we're going to come up with something a little different. So we don't want to change that, but chopped goodies that we want in there, a little bit of flavoring that we want in there, a little bit of sugar, that would be just fine. And on this too, speaking of the sugar, I know a lot of you try to keep the sugar out of your diet as much as possible. Don't usually recommend that you bake with Splenda or the other sweeteners because they don't have the bulk that you need for baking. But in something like this, if you wanted it sweet but you didn't want to add the sugar, a couple of teaspoons of Splenda is going to do just fine. Then you're going to pop this in the oven. You're going to bake these for about 20 minutes at 350, about 20 minutes there. All we're going to do is come in and feel that it's firm to the touch. And here's our finished product. You could wrap that up, pop that in the microwave at work, and you've got a great lunch to go. Let's go ahead and break that open. Nice little Mexican casserole there. And then our muffins with our corn and our pimento, very festive. The adults are going to love those. And now you've got 2 different types of muffins, 3 if you did one with the sugar. You've got lunch for the day, and any muffins you got left over, you're a step ahead for your cornbread stuffing for Thanksgiving. Thank you.